Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Middle Creek committee meeting, ad hoc committee meeting. Roll call. It seems that everyone's here, but I see Peter, Bruno, Marina, Scott, and myself. And I think Harry's in here. Let me check and see.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I just didn't see his picture, but Harry's right there, and so I think we're all here, and we'll go ahead and we've established the quorum and see if there's something on item number 2, consideration of items not appearing on the posted agenda.
I do want to add 1 or 2 items. I want to talk about, I don't see it on the agenda, so I want to make sure we talk about our meeting later today to kind of get some feedback from the rest of the committee on anything that we may not have prepared for that meeting. Just want to make sure that we get everybody's minds on this. And so that's 1 item. And then another item is to discuss the limitations of this committee and the guidelines of this committee.
All right. So
we can wait till the end for that. I'm perfectly fine.
So we'll call the first one 2.1, and that would be the meeting later today with Cecilia Aguilar-Curry and Senator McGuire, or their staff, either or. But so right. We'll go ahead and I think we'll do 1 apiece. We'll do them each because they're kind of different. So yeah. Can I get a motion, or is there any other comments or anybody else that would like to add anything? Okay, are there any comments about those 2 additions before I move to, or ask for someone to move to add those? Okay. So can I get a motion to add 2.1, which is the representative meeting that we're having later today, a discussion on that?
And I'll do both. I'll make a motion to approve both items that I have brought to the committee.
Motion by Bruno.
And I second.
Second by Marina. And we'll get a roll call vote. Bruno, Supervisor Sabatier.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Harry.
Aye.
Marina.
Aye.
And then, am I supposed to ask for Scott too, or is it one or the other?
I think one or the other. I think. Okay. Yeah. Unless Scott has any objection.
No, I don't have any objection to that.
Well, okay, in that case, I'm an aye. So we'll unanimously approve that. And so you want to go on to 2.1 first to discuss that meeting, at least the meeting, or do you want to push that later down?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that one first. I think it's important before we start having other statements made during some of the other items. And then let's do the other one last before item 10 or around then.
Sounds good, Bruno. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and start it. So we all know that we're kind of stressing a little bit on the extensions. And so I reached out to our state representatives. We will have Assembly Member Cecilia Aguilar-Curry. Her chief of staff responded in a way that I felt very positive. He capitalized the word "so" in his statement of thank you so much for bringing this to us in time, rather than basically waiting till March of 2022 to make a request for further extensions. We will be speaking directly with Assembly Member Cecilia Aguilar-Curry, and Mike McGuire, Senator McGuire, will not be available. He will be on the Senate floor during our time of meeting, but his Chief of Staff, Jason Lyles, which both EJ and I have worked a lot with in the past, he's basically his right-hand man. He will be at that meeting, as well as Taylor Morrison, who is a representative that many of us probably know. She's kind of the go-to person if you want to reach out to McGuire. So they will both be there to listen to us make our presentation. Our presentation will mainly be what we have done thus far since receiving the funding, doing our ESAs, obtaining a certain amount of properties, having all the number of appraisals that are going through the process, and also some of the timelines when dealing with the state. And then we were going to talk about some options. We'll talk about how the DWR offers us a 5-month extension that we will gladly take. But then we're going to ask that that might not be enough based on the timeline that we have seen things moving thus far. And so there's a couple different options. One option is to ask for Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry to rewrite a new piece of legislation where she will tell DWR that this will have a new extended deadline. That's one option. Another option, which we just discussed as a kind of an ad hoc committee on the side, is basically looking and having a conversation with DWR with the support of our state representatives to allow us to buy all the properties ourselves as a district and then be paid back, meaning we will not wait for the appraisals to be approved by the state. We will just, because right now 0 appraisals have been denied by the state. The state have just been basically bureaucratic processes of approving a professional activity done by the consultants or contractors that we've contracted with. And they've obviously must have done a good job for the fact that the state has never rejected any of the appraisals. So we're going to trust that the majority, if not all of the appraisals are good, looking to see if we can purchase the properties ourselves as the district and then allowing the state process to finalize. We need that approval from the Department of Water Resources that we can do it this way. That way we can go ahead and make sure we get a reimbursement. So we would be fronting the money to help quicken the pace and then expect to get reimbursed in the background. We're not going to take that action until we get approval from the Department of Water Resources to do so. But again, we need our state representatives to support us and help get DWR on board to say yes to those types of things. That might help us obtain the properties faster, but it may not change the timeline for when the state will finalize their part. And so we want to make sure that before we start taking some of those actions, we have all our pieces put in the right place and approvals in writing, not verbal. That's perfectly fine with them. So we will be meeting later this afternoon at 3 p.m. It will be Supervisor Crandall, myself, and Department of Water Resources to make sure that we have the proper presentation and the proper demands to our state representatives. And just kind of wanted to make sure and open it up so that any comments, any strategies or options of what should be on the table, we want to hear them now so that we make sure that we don't limit ourselves. And I feel fortunate that we got a meeting as quickly as we did. And I want to make sure we don't miss anything in that meeting so we don't have to call one back into session. And the document that you're seeing being shared has been shared with, or is going to be shared with, our representatives to make sure that they have access to that. But that is basically what we're presenting. We don't want to waste their time. We want to be very quick and succinct. These are the actions that have been taken. There's still this much left to get done. Our timelines are being extended. We know that we purchased and fronted the money for the property that we bought over for the, tell me the name, Marina? Torrance and Vigil.
Torrance and Vigil, yeah.
And then, yeah.
Property. We fronted the money in October. We just got reimbursed last week. So that is how long the Department of Water Resources is taking, and we're going to use that to our advantage to try and make our case more time, and we need their help to support us in the options that we're offering. So we're not going in with our hands out. We're offering ways that we can be a part of the solution, as well as looking for them to help us out as well, and opening it up for discussion and feedback.
Good. Thank you for explaining that, Bruno. Very good job. It looks like Corolla had her hand up, and I see Peter has his hand up as well. So Corolla, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruno, for that update. And yes, I'd love this document. It does hold Robinson's logo on it, so I'd love to read it and understand what's on it. So I assume it's been approved through the council already. I'm not sure through Robinson Council, but it'd be nice for them to see it. On a second note, EPA has put out a Region 9 wetlands grant opportunity that I'll be going after. And I'm going to centralize it on the Middle Creek Restoration Project because it doesn't have to be a project that's within trust land only. So I'm going to be reaching out to you, Harry, to talk on a scientific level of what are some options and directions we should be looking at going to first start this phase. But I think this should be added to your conversation tonight to let them know that, you know, Robinson is definitely taking approaches to help mitigate this issue and mitigate this, you know, what's going on and being a part of it. So that grant is due July 6th. I have someone already working on that, and yeah, we're pulling together ideas. So Harry, I will be reaching out to you to discuss this, and if you have any thoughts on some first projects to start with Middle Creek, I was thinking something, you know, assessment wise, it will grant fund assessment. It won't do long-term monitoring, but or setting up of a program, but we're not really there anyway. So just wanted to throw that out there and add that to your conversation tonight, if you would.
Thank you.
Carola, would you be able to send us a link so we can get a little bit more reading on that grant opportunity to better understand it as well?
For sure, for sure. I'll send you the solicitation. It just came out last week. So
thank you.
Thank you. Peter.
Yes. First, Bruno, thank you very, very much for what you're doing. I think that's just excellent because it's really helpful. I'd like to add something more that should strengthen your argument, and it has to do with the language of the contract itself, because there's just a glaring ambiguity in it. And Marina, it would be really helpful if you could put up that part of the contract with the state that talks about the funding and the deadline, because if you would do that, that would be really helpful, and I can illustrate what I'm talking about.
And then Peter, just tell me.
Yeah, okay, right there. Okay, the term of the agreement. Okay, and let me walk through, and because I think this will help you very much. As you see, the term of this funding agreement begins on the date this funding agreement is initially executed by the state through final payment plus 3 years unless otherwise terminated or amended as provided in this agreement. However, all work should be completed by March 31st, 2022, and no funds may be requested after December 31, 2022. That sentence is ambiguous and not clear. What is meant by all work should be completed by March 21st, 2022? What are they talking about? What's that mean? It sounds like, and then goes on, and no funds may be requested after December 31, 2022. What does that mean? In other words, does it mean that we can have no more negotiations after March of 2022, that we can have no more agreements, contracts, we can't go into escrow, we can't do anything of that sort, but then we have 9 months in which to ask for funds? What I think this language is drawn from a contract where you're building a highway. And the idea is that the construction work will be completed at a certain time, and then there's a period of time in which the funds can be requested. I find this language to be extremely ambiguous and uncertain. So when talking to the legislators in the state, we don't know what this means. Furthermore, what's the 5 months extension? Is it 5 months from March 31, 2022? Or is it 5 months from December 31, 2022? And so, and I don't know what informal answers have been given to those questions, but this is a real serious problem in this contract as to how we're to understand it, and the parties are to understand it. We've been working on the assumption that it's March 31, 2022, but to get all of our contracts done and everything. And then we have 9 months later in which to ask for funds. And that's the last question. Nobody be requested after December 31, 2022. It doesn't make sense, truthfully. The sentence does not make sense. And so I'm suggesting to you that when dealing with DWR and your discussions, clarity is what is needed, because we don't know what that means.
Agreed.
I don't know what it means.
Thank you.
And I don't know anybody else knows what it means. So,
I mean, in my mind, I would like to think that all state work shall be completed, meaning all appraisals have been approved. And then obviously you can ask for reimbursements all the way through December 31st, or does escrow have to be closed by March 31st, 2022? That's really the two things that they're two very different things.
that's right. And I can assure you that March 31st, 2022 does not refer to the state. This clause is directed to this sentence, and these deadlines are directed to the district, not the state. Okay, because they can't bind themselves. It's just in the nature of governmental agencies and in a matter of law. But
and just wanted to add real quick to the introduction that I gave this topic. In reviewing for the budget that we're doing on June 9th, we do have in reserves for cannabis taxes over $9 million.
mm-hmm.
So the idea of going to the board saying, let us utilize this on a need-to basis in order to purchase the properties and get paid back. If we get paid back, then it would just be utilizing the money and putting it right back as is. It's not just taking that money and it goes away for good. So I think that we have an opportunity at this moment, as long as the board is on board for that. And as long as DWR says that, yes, you can go ahead and purchase these as quickly as possible and still get reimbursed. We know we can get reimbursed after the appraisal has been approved, because that's what we showed with the Torrance Vigil, but we're not 100% sure that if we purchase it before the appraisal's been approved by the state, that they would go ahead and still reimburse. That's the one segment we need to make sure and get clear guidance from DWR.
So clarity is what's needed. We need, and from the outset, we've got these ambiguities. We don't know what they mean.
All right. Very good point, and I'm seeing where it could be confusing. I don't know if I'd have to look further in the document to see if there would be another explanation somewhere else. I'm sure you probably already looked through that and seen that there wasn't, so I get it.
Yeah, no, I have, and there's no, and what's kind of unique about this sentence is that it's an add-on in this contract. In other words, it's pretty obvious. The term of the first sentence talks about the term of the agreement being 3 years, unless otherwise terminated or amended. But then it's a however. However, all work should be completed by March 31st, 2022. In other words, this clause was added in as unique to this contract in contradiction to the preceding sentence, or limiting that preceding sentence. So what they're saying very clearly in this is, hey, this contract's unique, notwithstanding what we ordinarily do, this one has a deadline. The problem is you can't tell. The only definitive thing is you can't request money after December 31st. You don't know what the work refers to.
All right, thank you, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else that has any concerns, questions about the meeting, or he wants to expound on what Peter was talking about?
And just to let you know, DWR will not be at this meeting at this moment in time. I think that's our next meeting. We want to make sure and get the support of our state representatives first, and then get them to be on board, and then meet with DWR with their support, which at that point, I think we'll be able to get better leverage to get the response that we need.
Corolla.
Sorry about that. I had to take it off mute. Yeah, I just wanted to, is it just going to be the Board of Supervisors, or will there be tribes there also, since they are part of that flyer?
It's just going to be DWR and EJ myself.
Okay,
It was kind of a quick, let's get it together. We need to have the conversation sooner than later. Time's gonna fly by. And so it's nothing too official, but at the same time, I think it's a very good step forward.
agreed. I agree. It is a good step forward. And thank you for making it happen.
All right. Still looking, I don't see anyone with their hands up or jumping out to speak. So, Bruno, that wasn't an action item, was it? It was just for formality to discuss, right?
It was for discussion so we can have better information or better ideas in case that we had limited ideas.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for that discussion, and we will go ahead and move forward on to actionable items. Unless, Marina, you had anything else? No?
Nope.
Very
You did a
good job.
So, thank you.
Very good job on that presentation that we'll be using too. I really enjoy that, and I think it's going to be nice, succinct, and we'll be able to discuss more with a lot right in front of us.
And I will be sure that everyone has access to that flyer as well. As mentioned, yeah, this was a very last minute effort, so it may or may not have just gotten finished last night. So
May or may not.
yes.
All right, so we'll move on to board action 3.1, approved minutes of the May 3rd, 2021 Middle Creek project meeting. Any additions, corrections, or any action?
I see no corrections, so I move to approve the minutes from April 5th, 2021.
I have a motion by Supervisor Sabatier
And I'll second that, Harry Lyons.
and a second by Harry Lyons. We'll go ahead and go for the roll call vote. Harry Lyons,
Yes.
Peter Windrum,
Yes.
Marina Delagiani,
Yes.
and Bruno Sabatier.
Aye.
And then I am an aye. So unanimously approved on the minutes, and we'll move on to project parcel acquisition, area parcel acquisition, on to 4.1. Marina.
Yes. So we have, let me pull up my project tracker from Paragon. So we have made offers to the Clear Lake Duck Club, the SABA, the Sino American Buddhist Association. Mountanos, we got a counter offer. So I sent an email to the state this morning with the documentation. With these current funds, this is the first counter offer that we've gotten. I don't anticipate that the state will not approve that since it is under the 10% difference that the state prefers. So I don't anticipate that will be an issue. But again, sent it to them, just waiting for their approval on that for the Mountanos. And then that's what we have right now. And I'm gonna pass it over to Scott to provide an update. We are working on our partial parcel acquisitions right now. So we're in conversations with Jeremy and then also some other folks in terms of moving that project along. So I'm gonna look over to Scott DeLeon to provide an update on that.
Good morning. Yeah, we've spent a fair amount of time over the last week or so exploring any and all available options for trying to expedite these, largely in response to the concerns about the timeframes and deadlines. And I think no stone has been left unturned. We've looked at just about every option that we could think of to help move these forward, to include perhaps flowage easements in lieu of the purchase of the properties in fee, and spent a fair amount of time looking at that internally, working with the state. Celia did a great job of going through the contract with the state, and we ultimately came to the conclusion that an easement, though possible, really created a lot more trouble and a lot more issues than purchasing the properties outright, which was a little surprising, but and disappointing, but the agreement with the state really spells out the things that they were expecting, the things that we needed to do, and so we're hitting that just as hard as we can with the consultants. We looked at some legal description options and came to the conclusion again through working with Jeremy and others that the legal descriptions had to meet a certain standard. We were hoping to kind of reduce that a little, again, just in the essence of time, but it's pretty clear what we need to do. And with respect to insurance, title insurance and things of that nature, it basically has told us exactly what we need to do. And again, we're working diligently on that. We have a local surveyor working on plats. Jeremy is got a surveyor that they work with, and there are, and Marina, you'll have to help me, I think it was 14 properties that the state identified in the agreement as partial acquisition. So the state had already anticipated that, and so we're actually reducing the numbers of partial acquisitions that we're going to go after, and the remaining properties will go for entire properties to hopefully kind of speed things up a little bit. So with that, we're working diligently on moving forward with the partials and getting those completed. Whoops, I'm muted. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. No, you were. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for that. Any comments, concerns, questions for?
Yeah, I had a question for Scott. The state thought there were 14 partials, and you thought you could reduce that down to what?
Actually, we were going for more than 14, and so which just it added to the numbers there for the plats and legals, and again the agreement spelled out 14 parcels, and this was something that we discovered. Celia went through that and fine-tooth comb and found that those 14 parcels. So we reduced the numbers that we were looking to do partial acquisitions on, which we were able to then turn the consultants loose on full acquisitions for the other parcels.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick question for you. The legals and plats, I know that's something that we've been waiting on. Do we have all of them? And I'm sorry, I will admit to multitasking a little bit. Do we have all the legals and plats? Are we still waiting on some? And if we're waiting on some, what can be done to try and help out?
So we do have plats and legals from a local land surveyor, and again we were going through, and I really don't want to get in the weeds of how the plats and legals were created and how the legal description was created, because frankly it's just, we'll spend the rest of the morning talking about the nuances between meets and bounds descriptions and descriptions of excluding properties lakeward of a line, and I see Peter smiling, and I know that his background is such that he understands exactly what I'm talking about. And we again, to try to speed things up, we went through and we submitted these to the state as examples to is this going to be acceptable? And basically what we were doing is we were writing a description that excluded land lakeward of a line. And I'm being very, very simplistic in the description here. And both Jeremy and the state said that it needs to be better defined. And they want to see, you know, a meets and bounds description of the area being taken. Additionally, the title company, because we knew the title company would be involved with this, we didn't want to get down the road and have the state say, yeah, that looks okay. And then now we're trying to close escrow and the title company saying, wait a second, we can't insure this because of the ambiguity in it. And so what we're basically having to do is that legal description is going to need to be revised with a tighter description of the area being taken. So hopefully that answers your question, Supervisor Sabatier. But again, it's a form of the description. The plat is basically the plats and legals that we asked them to do are done. It's now we're going to need to tune them up a little bit and revise them. I've got calls into concert. Jeremy has, and you asked, how can we speed this up? What we're going to be proposing is that Jeremy's got a surveyor that they normally work with. I've got a surveyor in the county here that has looked at all of these properties and more, because we took some of them away from him. As I mentioned just a second ago about reducing the parcels to 14. So we have a guy that's already looked at these. The preliminary title reports are already pulled. So we're going to be working together with Jeremy and his surveyor to utilize the information that we already have we need to divide and conquer. We'll do that, but we're going to be using either or both firms to help speed this up.
And then nothing can happen as far as appraisals until legals and plats are completed, correct? Because then way you're appraising the property based on the legal description.
And we tried to, again, we've tried to shake this loose every possible way that we can do this, to include, can you do these partial acquisition appraisals off of the plat that was the simplified plat. Let's call it that. And Jeremy was extremely unsupportive. I won't say unwilling. He was extremely unsupportive of performing that for fear of the state objecting to that and then requiring a second appraisal based on some minor modification of a map. And he was really concerned about the chance that we were taking there.
Okay. Is there any timelines being offered on when we can anticipate some of these things to possibly be completed by?
Well, I've said end of this month, and that was not received well. I can tell you that. I'd like to say end of July. We'll have all the plats and legals done. I've asked for end of this month. I think end of July is more likely the case. I think that's reasonable.
Well, I think we need to be realistic, but we also need to light a fire to make sure that we stay on top of it and move efficiently. Are there still appraisals that are eligible to be done by Monument while we still deal, because they're not all an issue, correct? Only some of them you're still dealing with the legals and plats. They're able to move forward at least on some properties?
It's my understanding, and Marina might be able to help with that, but it's my understanding that yes, there were a few additional properties that opened up that we were going to be looking to buy wholly entire parcels that they could be working on, as well as the multiple projects, things that we have already been
in the pipeline, right?
Already been in the pipeline, yeah.
Right. And do we have an anticipation of the time it takes for them to finalize the appraisal before they submit it over to the state? Are we looking at 1 to 2 weeks? for them to finish their reports? Can they do multiple properties in that same timeline?
You know, I don't have the answer to that. I've been kind of operating at a little different level here and applying pressure in a little different way. And I don't know if Marina might have an answer based on discussions with Jeremy. I've been, like I said, I've been coming at this a little different and being kind of a pain in a different, you know, coming at things a little differently. So maybe Marina might have some input on that.
From my last conversations with Jeremy, we were looking at roughly 2 to 3 weeks. I'm planning on having a follow-up conversation with Jeremy by the end of today. We've been playing phone tag. And that's one of my questions is, now that we have a better idea, especially with the priority parcels, one of them being the Whitfield property, I want a better idea of, you know, what's this anticipated timeline of, you know, when we're going to get the appraisals back, in terms of just understanding the timeline that's changed now, knowing that it takes so long with the state. It's going to be easier to get that expedited process from Jeremy compared to the state. So I'll have that answer hopefully by the end of today.
Okay. I think that the more we can figure out some of the pieces and the timelines within the pieces as they get more used to our process and the state's process, the more we can kind of figure out what our timeline will eventually look like. If we hold ourselves accountable, it means we're holding them accountable.
And partially so with that is, you know, when I'm going to request the extension from the state, I want to have an updated timeline. So we have the timeline that was placed in the current agreement that we have with the state from 2019, but I'm creating a timeline based on what we're getting now with, you know, requesting the funds from the state with their 6 to 9 month turnaround of getting a check to us, what that anticipated timeline will look like carried out, even if we are granted an extension or not. So that's what I'm working on, is a modified, more updated timeline. And these are the questions that I'm hoping to grab.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Mary Jo, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, I do. What happened to the discussion when bringing Jeremy on board that he was going to attend these meetings? Because it's very frustrating for me. Now I'm going to go to the land trust. I'm going to say, and Marina's going to know the answer by the end of today, but I won't find it out until next month. You know, it's really, I thought they were supposed to attend.
Yeah, so I have not invited Jeremy to a meeting as of late. Again, we've been having conversations with him. I can bring him to the next meeting, but just with the legals and plats, I find that his time is more appropriately spent. Same with Paragon as well, to be working on the parcels when I could easily rely information. So if we want to invite him to the next meeting, he'll have a better update. We'll have more information for him to share. Because again, that's time away from our contract. Right.
I understand that, but is there any way I don't have to wait a month to know what you're going to find out by the end of today?
Yeah, I can send you an email. I can send whoever, you know, an email regarding the information that I get from Jeremy before you go to the land trust. Just give me a heads up and I can get that information to you as soon as I find out, Mary Jo.
Okay, just heads up. Please send me the information. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on item 4.1?
I do just want to quickly say that I'm thankful for the efforts being made to try and find alternative pathways to getting to the end results we all want to get to. I know it's not as simple. We think of a lot of different things, and unfortunately we find the barriers pretty quickly as to this is a great idea, oops, maybe not. But I do appreciate the fact that Water Resources has been trying to think outside of the box. How can we do this faster? How can we do this easier? How can we do this cheaper? Because it's not just timeline, it's also funding. Do we have enough funding to actually purchase all these properties? So all of the above, I do appreciate the time being spent to try and figure this out, as well as the time spent with Supervisor Crandall and myself, and at the meeting later today. I just think you guys are making the effort based on what you're hearing and what you want to get done. So it's our statements are not being unheard.
Peter, you had your hand up before.
Yeah, I just want to second Bruno's comments to the nth degree. I so appreciate, Scott, your report, and Marina, and your efforts on expediting this. I think that's extremely helpful. I also have, I think, would be useful information for Jeremy and you all too, as it relates to the Sealy and Oldham properties, that can help that process significantly. I just would like to pass it on. And so anyway, thank you very, very much for what you're doing. That's beginning to feel much more hopeful, I should say, as the focus is now seems to be very much on getting speed, making it go faster. So anyway, thank you.
I'm just going to tell you, all of your comments are heard here.
I know.
We want to deliver this. We want to deliver this more than I think that perhaps you know. This is a extremely high priority for us, and you know, we're going at this with everything that we possibly can. So
Yeah.
we appreciate the comments, and Peter, your connections with some of these properties that have historically been, you know, they wouldn't even call us back, and you have been instrumental in forging, you and Dr. Lyons have just been instrumental in forging those connections with some huge properties that we have wanted to get for decades now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the opportunity to work as a team is,
Yes.
and where each of us brings our own skills and attributes to the table is what's going to make this happen. And so we appreciate, you know, you guys let us do what we do, and you help us and make those connections, or help us make those connections. And I think together we're gonna have a fighting chance here. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. I agree.
I just noticed, I think that Irenia Quidiquid has joined us, and Irenia is the Secretary Treasurer for Robinson Rancheria. And since we're on Project Area Parcel Acquisition, I had actually reached out to the tribal chair about meeting Marina. Remember when we discussed how we're having, and so I don't know if Irenia is aware of some of the discussions we've had and whatnot. I don't know if we can even really bring that up, considering it wasn't on the agenda. But I'd like to seize this opportunity to let you know that at one time Irenia attended, and she wasn't on the council, but she is on the council now, and so she's in attendance. And so,
Oh, good.
yeah.
I think it's perfectly fine right now to discuss why it's important to have those conversations, because it has to do with the acquisition of land.
Excellent. And so Irenia, I think what has taken place, and it might have been right during the exchange when you were seated onto tribal council, the Lake County Water Resources sent documents to, you want to explain what's that document called, Marina? It's a
willing sellers list.
Yes, willing sellers list. I'm sorry. So they sent the willing sellers list to the tribe, and the tribe sent it back stating they're not interested in the sell. I don't think the council, aside from you, understand, because they're all fairly new. They don't understand how long this project's been going, and some of what's been going on or discussed. Maybe they do, I don't know. And so I know we were looking to try and set a meeting so we can answer any questions and talk also about, you know, I think there was concern. I'm not sure exactly if it was, I think it might be the new property that the tribe just purchased. There might be some concerns there, but I just really think it would be beneficial for us to either meet with the council and kind of answer some questions and get down to the real nitty gritty of it, because we really want to make sure that the tribe understands that it will be fair market value. I think there's a concern there, because I remember hearing that before when I was on the council. But I understand fully that it would be assessed at fair market value. So without further ado, I'm just letting you know that. I don't know if you'd like to comment, or if anyone else would like to comment on that. Just wanted to bring that up and seize the opportunity, because I know time is of the essence.
And just want to put an option out there that I know, for instance, the city of Clear Lake signed some sort of lease deal with a property behind Walmart in order to get CAL FIRE to work with the city as a public jurisdiction to clear that private property. Maybe we can do a similar type of contract where we sign something and they just, maybe they want to keep the land, but approve of it being a part of the district and that it will get flooded. I don't know. Just putting it out there that that might be also another option, that it becomes part of the district because of the agreement we sign, but we don't actually have to buy it. That could always be a status.
Hello?
That we,
Hello?
Irene, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I had you on mute. But anyway, yes, so I'm on board in another capacity. And this project has always been dear to me since the day it started in 1996. And I was working with Bob Lucius back then. And so I've been to, a lot of it, and changes and have occurred. Seems like every other year something happens differently. But we stuck with it and still continue to stick with it because it's a really important project on, for the county. Yes, and I really wanted to have a meeting with Middle Creek with you guys, maybe, I don't know, or just with EJ, or just to kind of get briefed, updated on what's going on. And I have been out of the loop for the last few meetings, just trying to get my bearings here. And Corolla and Tamasha Anderson have been on it from the environmental department. So, so we want to all have a meeting and just kind of get updated on all of it. So I look forward to that, and I'll be talking to you soon. Setting that up. Thank you.
Yes. And so I had reached out to the chair and asked him if we can Zoom in or whatever. I know that you all meet on Wednesdays, and so I know that it's kind of early notice for Wednesday, but if we can look at something in the near future, we can ensure that we attend and just kind of open the door for this again, because I remember back in the 2000s when I was on the council and we were talking about this project. I was a member at large, and honestly, I'll tell you the truth, it went over my head. I had no clue. Back then, I was only like 28. So I think you were the director at the time too. So yeah, we just leaned heavily on you. So anyhow, look forward to that moving forward and seeing where we can get with it. And if there's not anything else, I think we can go ahead and move on. I appreciate it, Irene, your attendance. Really do. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Looks like we are on item 5.1, discuss updates and next steps in communications with Department of Water Resources.
So again, we are sending out the letter of request for extension. Once I get that sent out, I will be sure to share that with everyone. I'm just working on a few things here and there. In the meantime, still having conversations with DWR, and then we're getting up to speed with our progress reports. But so by July Middle Creek meeting, we will have the two most recent progress reports for the committee and the community to see what we have sent out to the state. Thank you, Daniela, for your help on that. Yeah, just communicating very closely on a daily, minutely, it seems like, basis with DWR. Lots of moving pieces, so getting us up to speed with our progress reports. And then again, the priority is the request for extension. So, and then of course the appraisal review. So just sending them the document from Montanos and making sure, because again, we haven't had anything of this nature with our most current grant, which is, let me see what it is. It is the administrative settlement. So I want to make sure that this document that Paragon prepared for this property crosses all the check boxes from DWR. I don't know if there's anything else. I would be surprised if there isn't additional paperwork that we have to send besides the administrative settlement for DWR. So I will keep everyone up to speed on that, but just communicating closely with them. And again, as Supervisor Sabatier said, that we will probably have a follow-up conversation with DWR per our conversation with our elected officials today.
absolutely.
And that's all I have on that item.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you very much. Any other questions or concerns that we would like to? Nope, not seeing any. We'll move on to item 6.1 or 6 and 6.1, letter to be sent from the Board of Supervisors to Congressman Garamendi and Thompson. And then 2 is discuss updates and next steps in communications, of course. Yeah. And so I think attached is the letter itself if you haven't received the document, it's attached. And I think, Peter, you have a question. Go ahead.
Well, let me comment for the reason for the letter, the background on that. Last week was the funeral service for Cliff Rizika, a local engineer many of you knew. And Brad Honorato, who is the field representative for Mike Thompson and has been for decades, called me and asked if I could deliver to the family a flag that has been flown over the United States Capitol, and to deliver that to the Rizika family and to be used in that service. Mike was not able to attend the service himself. So anyway, Brad came by and we sat and talked about that. I've known Brad for decades. Anyway, so in the course of that conversation, we talked about Middle Creek. And we had sent an email to him a few weeks before and didn't get a response particularly. And he said, you know, I've been hearing things about Middle Creek. He knows about the Middle Creek project. So anyway, I explained the problems we were having with the Army Corps, and in particular, how we wanted to be in the Army Corps' work plan. That's capital W, capital P. It's a big thing. In order to complete some elements that the Sacramento district of the Corps has identified have to be completed before we can then go on to apply for congressional funding for the design phase. So anyway, we had a good conversation. We talked about that in detail. And what he said is that Mike would be happy to do that. They also work, he says that Mike's staff and Garamendi's staff work very well together. And so with something like this, they would team up, which of course would be fantastic because now we have a letter from both congressmen to the Army Corps. And so, so Brad asked, well, could you send a letter on that to them, specifying what it is we want? And I said, of course we can do that. And by the way, this letter is really, although it's addressed to the congressman, who it's really going to be sent to with importance is their staffs. Okay, that's really who we're wanting to get. And then it occurred to me, of course, if we're sending this to Mike and asking Mike to make that, we should really go to both, because then Brad can take it and they can work with the congressional staffs, and it's a team effort between the two offices. So anyhow, that's the reason for this letter, is so that it gets both these congressional staffs and congressmen working together to work on the Army Corps to include this project in their work plan. What happens is the Army Corps Sacramento district asks, please include this in your annual work plan. And then it goes up in the hierarchy in the Army Corps and gets dropped in favor of other projects. So that's the background on this letter, and why it is that Harry and I have put this thing together and are giving it to you to be signed and sent off to these congressional offices. So happy to answer any questions.
Bruno.
I see one thing that I think is important to put in there, and I think we need to word it correctly because we don't have it allocated, but I think we should say we are prepared with the district's portion to get this project moving. Something along those lines.
That's a good idea.
We need to make the statement that we're ready, we're waiting on you guys. I mean, obviously we're working on the acquisition of properties, but the design can happen now.
Sure. That's a good suggestion. We could draft a sentence and put in there to that effect. In other words, modify it and then send it back. And yeah, we can do that. Here's a question, a procedural question I have for Eddie and Bruno. Can you all sign this and send it, or do you think it has to go to your entire board before the supervisors, before it gets sent off?
We could send this. We can
I think we
send a
could send
letter.
this.
We could send a letter on our own anytime we want. Typically, the ones we bring to the board is where we want to get the full board support to show that there's all 5 members and it's the County of Lake supporting this. Here, it's not the County of Lake. It would just be 2 individual supervisors.
Okay, so logistically then, just to review that very thing, if we put a sentence in and then Marina, does this go to you and then you put it on the letterhead and then give it to Eddie and Bruno to sign? Is that the logistics?
Yeah, so once you make that, just send me the revised document, Peter, and then what I'll do is I'll put it on the letterhead and then send it to EJ and Bruno so they can.
Okay, now here again, what's really critical is that we're going to send this. This would go in written form. I don't want to take too much time on this, but we'll want to send these letters in emails attached and with particular direction to the staff members. And I can make a note to Bruno, or not to, I'm sorry, I forget your name there, to Brad, saying, Brad, here's the letter you and I were talking about, and hope you can pick it up and take it from there. So it'll be really important that we have, meaning Harry and I have copies of the signed documents, so we make sure that they get to the hands they need to go to. And in the case of John Garamendi's office, it would be John
Nicoletti.
Yeah, Nicoletti. Yeah, he's Brad's counterpart.
What I would suggest, and you could figure out the wording, but I think in the second paragraph at the end, where we're saying we respectfully ask that you recommend that the Army for Civil Works and the Chief of Engineers have the project be included. And then after that, we can say the Lake County is prepared with its district portion for the project. That way, basically, we're asking for you to move forward. We're ready.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and we'll add that sentence. And of course, you'll be looking at the letter, and if you wanted any further changes, why Marina could do that. Okay, and then before you sign it. So we'll send that, we'll get that out right away.
All right. Any other questions or comments that anybody has about this letter?
Well, I will make one last comment. I just want to make sure that Supervisor Crandall is given the full position that he has, and instead of member District 3, if we could just also add he's vice chair of the County of Lake. That way it adds a little bit more oomph as to who's signing.
Yes.
And I think that's why Peter was also asking if it needs to come from us or all 3. But I think we want to get this out sooner than later. So that's why sending it with just our signatures is more ideal. But in order to get it on the agenda, I know that Bruno and myself have no problem adding it if need be. But I mean, if we could just sign it and send it, and they're expecting it anyhow, we should be okay.
Sure, and that's perfect. That's all it really needs. It doesn't.
Because I mean, we're talking about oomph, and if we just need one more vote, I'm sure we can get that on the other board. So that it says from the County of Lake, I'm just throwing that out there, but I think we're good. So,
yeah.
All right. So that takes care of 6.1. Any other questions?
Do we? I think we need a motion to approve the letter.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Thank you, Bruno.
Motion. I make a motion to approve the letter with amended changes that will be upcoming, but very much like what we just discussed.
Motion.
That's a good motion. I like that one.
I second to approve the letter with the amendments discussed during this meeting and then sending it off.
All right. So I'll call a roll call. Peter.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Harry.
Aye.
Marina.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Bruno, for reminding me about that. Sometimes I think they're just inherently passed, but we got to formalize it, so.
Who would say no to that?
I could think of some people, but 6.2, discuss updates and next steps in communications with Army Corps. Do we need to cover that more, or?
Yeah, I just have something. I was given homework to find out if the Army Corps ever allows a project to proceed with easements instead of outright purchases. And instead of pestering Josh Garcia, Peter referred me to the feasibility study, which is essentially our contract with the Army Corps. And right there on page 3, it says that the non-federal sponsor, and that's the County of Lake, will purchase outright the properties. So it's part of the condition. So I know earlier in this evening, in this meeting, Scott mentioned the difficulty in the easement approach. Well, with respect to the Corps, it's more than a difficulty; it's an impossibility. So we have to buy the property if we go with the Army Corps. You know, if we change around and move with the state, that might change our options. But the Corps insists that this County of Lake buy the property. The 2 other items I have are 2 letters. I worry about things at three at a time. The one letter we just discussed that we'll edit and send back to you. The second one was the letter from the supervisors to the DWR in support of the extension. And I wondered if that had made its way to the mail. And the third letter was the letter of intent to the Army Corps signed by the full suite of supervisors. Has that made it to the mail? So the other 2 letters, can I get some info on that?
Yes, so the Board of Supervisors, the support of the request for letter of extension, it was aimed to go before the board on the 8th, but I moved it to the 15th. So by next Tuesday, that will go before the board. They will see that, hopefully approve it, and then we will get that sent out with their signatures on that by the end of that week. Things move relatively quickly. I should get that in my hands shortly after that, once that's approved. And then the other letter of support, I believe that was sent out. I'm looking at Supervisor Sabatier and Supervisor Crandall. Let me triple check my emails. I know there's been a few letters.
Let me go to my agenda real quick, because it was brought before us right after the presentation.
Yes.
Okay. And I think we did. I think we voted. Yeah, I think we voted yes on it. And I remember signing something that was sent to me. I'm not sure if you remember, Supervisor Sabatier. I'm going to look through my emails real quick, because I remember signing something.
Yeah, no, I remember signing that too.
I'll triple check if I haven't gotten it from admin yet. I will triple check, and I should get that today. I'll follow up with them to make sure, because once we get, I don't know if you guys are doing hard signatures or wet signatures.
We're doing DocuSigns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll triple check.
My guess is Johanna's really good about getting those letters out, and she might just have taken it in her own hands and taken the action. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not finding it, but it's just because I don't want to close this, but I remember signing something. So
yeah.
We get better and better at this. One of the things I want to do next year is this letter to our representatives to give us more forceful lobbying for being on the work plan. We'll probably do that earlier, January or February, but I'm very proud of everyone that we got this letter of intent in right on time, early, in fact. So we get, it's like a yearly harvest plan of connection with these agencies and our representatives, and we're gonna get sharp at this.
Resprinkling seeds.
Yeah. Someday we'll actually be sprinkling seeds of wetland vegetation.
Nice.
Then
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
all right, excellent. Let me go. Sorry, I clicked off of everything. So I'll move forward on to the next item. I think is 7, right? Item 7. Sometimes when I click off to check emails, it does that. There we go. PG&E, right?
Yep.
Any updates with PG&E?
I don't have any updates, but I think that we need to get back to the table and start talking, especially if we're starting to send out letters saying we're ready for the Army Corps. We have our funding. We're going to have to coordinate this simultaneously and not do one after another, else it's not going to happen for the next 50 years. So I think that we should probably start bringing PG&E back. Melinda Rivera is the new replacement. I have made her be aware of the status and the situation. She spoke with Allison, I forgot the previous person's last name.
Casanova.
I don't remember her last name. But
Casanova.
Allison from PG&E was one of our government relations folks and who had that conversation with us. I told her to speak with David Kelly, who was one of the PG&E guys who met with Supervisor Crandall and myself. But I think, again, we need to figure out what the steps are before it becomes something that's a problem where everything else has kind of been done and finalized except for PG&E. And so I think we should go back to bringing them either to the committee or having a subcommittee meeting with them. Again, we have the funding to be able to start the design. Let's have it at least be prepared so that when we're ready to go and we've done finalized the acquisition of properties, we can go ahead and start it.
Okay. So we should, I can reach out to her and see if you can, if I could set something up for us to meet with her. I've worked with her before, so yeah, I can do that.
And I'm just going to bring up something that's not on the agenda real quick is next time, let's add Caltrans back on, because that's another one that's going to take a very long time. And we need to make sure that Highway 20 is appropriately ready for this project to move forward.
And I have a South Deal committee meeting Thursday, which involves Caltrans. So I can start getting feelers out there as well.
And we've had a conversation with Caltrans in the past, so it won't be the first time. But again, getting a design and getting a plan and getting actual action. I mean, look at Highway 29, how long it's taken just to get there. So we really need to push forward on some of these other things.
All right. So I can have that discussion. She responds pretty well. I've had a couple incidents with other things, and she's helped me out really expediently. So we'll see where we can go from there. And hopefully we can get the question answered about if it floods, because that's where we were left at with the last question we asked. If it floods, what happens in that case? Do we still have to pay for it, or?
Right.
Okay. All right. So 8, legislative. Any updates on the legislative? I know that I've seen the letter and that falls in line with legislative. But if there's anything else we need to discuss on this, gladly.
More to come after this afternoon's meeting.
Excellent. Number 9, project.
And we will not wait till next month to let you know what happened.
We'll send something out right away. And so speaking of that project funding, discussion of budget request for Middle Creek project. And I know you mentioned something earlier, Bruno, but I'll go ahead and let you, if you have some more on that. We were talking about, you said something about the $9 million that's sitting there. Maybe we could ask to use that and refill it and replenish it with funding.
Yeah, right now there's nine point something million in the cannabis tax reserves. Or at least by the end of 21-22, there will be $9 million, which means that by the end of December, because that's when we're going to receive the rest of our taxes. And so there's $9 million that I think is available. I have a letter that I'm starting to draft to bring to the board to request that we utilize it temporarily with the plan to pay it all back.
Excellent.
And I do not plan to bring that up necessarily during the budget hearings. because there's nothing official to bring to the board, and having it in reserves does not mean that no one can touch it. So I'm okay with it sitting there versus it being spent. So I'm not going to argue too much about it on budget. I might hint that there might be a need for it, but I'm not gonna try to persuade the board not to put it in reserves. I think that's the right place for the money.
Right. All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Are we on pardon me, are we at number 9 on project funding? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, we're on number 9.
Yes, may I comment?
Yes.
As I got thinking about it, it strikes me that it would be good to have for the project exclusively a budget, and that it be in your budget, not kind of mushed in with other things, but a standalone budget for this project that shows the sources of revenues, such things as grants, rental income, and then, of course, the appropriations that you bring, the expenses associated with the project, including those of matching funds, all of that, so one can see what the finances of this enterprise are and what the requirements are that from the standpoint of the county and the district. Because I don't think there's anything that I can lay my hands on that says how much is it that the county needs to contribute. Let me give you an example. Eminent domain. We're going to have to start for eminent domain proceedings against one of the property owners that is not a willing seller. And ultimately, that would be as true as to any unwilling sellers. In eminent domain proceedings, you file the suit if they can't arrive at an agreement, and you have to deposit the full amount of compensation into the court right then and there. So, well, here's this piece of property that Scott has talked about in the past where we need to do eminent domain proceedings. And we know based on the appraisal that it's appraised X dollars, so you're gonna have to put some money in reserve. Point being, if that's part of a budget, one of the aspects of the budget for this project, then you know that, okay, we got to put away that amount of money for that purpose. And other expenses, eminent domain. And that's just simply one example. So anyhow, and from my little notes, I said to sell it because I knew there were budget hearings coming up, and I don't understand that process. And so I asked, well, could it be a standalone project for the budget that you're dealing with, I guess, tomorrow? And she said, no, it should be something for your board to consider, obviously, and then make a decision about that later on. So anyhow, I guess what I'm looking for or suggesting is this committee if you all, Bruno and EJ, in agreement to make a recommendation to the larger board that, yes, we create a budget category, whatever you call this, for this entire project as a standalone document that people can look at and know what it is that's entailed and help with planning forward. That's the reason for the request and proposal of the idea. It's budgeting procedures. That's all I have to say on that.
And I will say, because this is grant funding, it has to be received and directed in a specific way. It does not just mix in with whatever funds that are available to water resources. So there should already be a separate document. And I think that our grant reporting probably also provides some of that, and maybe that has not been made easily accessible. I think most of our grant reporting, you might have to ask for it rather than it being obviously made public automatically, but it is a public document since we're using public dollars and we're reporting back to the state on how it's being utilized. I think you did bring up some other stuff, such as the income that we get from the rental or leases on the land that we've already acquired. I don't know that it requires its own budget, but maybe we could figure out a way so that on a annual basis that there's a report on the Middle Creek area the funding we've received from the state, the funding that we've utilized out of our own funds, and the funding that are the revenues that we've received from the properties that are there. I'm sure that that might be possible. I'm kind of looking at Marina. I don't see Scott, but similarly, they would be the ones better to say how simple that process might be. And I said annual because I'd hate to ask them to do more than what they already have to do on top of everything else that they already do. But I think that I understand what you're asking for. And I think there's already some separations. There's already mechanisms that force us to separate some of those things. And so let's see if we can come up with something kind of like how Marina came up with that flyer, that presentation for what we're doing later today. Maybe there's something that's somewhat simple that can be updated on an annual basis that might be able to provide that level of information.
Can I comment about that a little more? I think there are more expenses. For example, you have maintenance responsibilities and paying for. It's not just all grant funded. Money that's coming out of, for example, if you're going to come out of the cannabis tax and make an appropriation of money from the cannabis tax for expenses that are incurred by the district that are not grant fund reimbursed, it strikes me that it warrants, just like anything else, where you have the income and expenses, and here's how much, and you all say, in order to meet these expenses we're going to have to appropriate $450,000. Well, how do you know that unless you do, without a single document, a budget entry that balances basically income and expenses? I think we ought to understand what the financial position is for this project as a standalone project. That's my argument. So enough said.
If I could jump in, so a lot of the things. This is Scott. This is a lot of the things that you've mentioned, Peter, are already in the budget, and it's in Budget Unit 8109 for water resources. That is the Watershed Protection District budget. And I can tell you from previous attempts to separate out specific projects or specific operations, it's difficult to make that happen. And so one of the things that is challenging, and I agree, picking up a budget book, a county budget book, there's a lot of accounting terms and a lot of places that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And but I can assure you that the revenue in 8109 there are separate entries for the state grant funds. It's shown in that. The document that we send to the board and administration that the public rarely sees has a fair amount of that information. And one of the things that I would probably suggest, and I don't want Marina or anybody else to do that, I'm going to volunteer to do this, is to sit down with you one of these days soon, Peter, and let me show you the things that we've done. There are appropriations for maintenance. There's appropriations for expenses related to this project, to include property purchases. There's a separate form in the paperwork that we've submitted that illustrates property purchases. And I think perhaps, and you'll have to forgive me, I do sign the budgets, and I review them, and I don't specifically recall an appropriation for eminent domain, but I will check that as soon as we're done with the meeting here today. With the exception of that, I think the majority of the things that you've mentioned here this morning, we have in one form or another in our draft budget in 8109. So
okay. That's good.
be happy to show you that. it's it can be a mystery. So perhaps a little time spent with you and I can show you where that stuff is hidden.
Okay.
And I
Thank you very much, Scott.
I see here in budget item 8109, just because I've been knee deep in the budget as well in this past week or so, 60-00 is a appropriation fund, and it has $12 million left in it. I'm guessing that that is our grant in order to be able to access land. It says here capital fixed asset land appropriations. And so I'm sure that that money itself is the grant that we have access to, and also that it could be used for, I guess we wouldn't be able to use that specifically for eminent domain, since that's for only people who want to sell it. But I don't see anything for eminent domain unless Scott would say otherwise. But it is absolutely confusing. I'm still learning the process, and I'm in my third year of going through the process. I'm feeling more comfortable with looking through it and understanding it than ever, but I think I'm still going to be a student for years to come.
And that budget unit or that object code that you referenced was 15 million 2 years ago or last year. So that is that reduction reflects the approximate cost of what we've spent out of that grant to date. And so yes, it was reduced to reflect the other purchases. So that's exactly the appropriation for the purchase of property for this project. Again, I will check. I don't recall an appropriation for eminent domain, but I will check that. And if there's an opportunity, this draft preliminary budget that the board's going to hear this week, there's time to make modifications to that for the final budget in September. And so if we need to modify some things, we can certainly do that.
And I would just add, I know we want to finish the project as a whole, but we don't have a deadline of March 31st, 2022 for that, since that would go a complete different route for us to do eminent domain. So while, yes, it is something that we have to look at for those who are not willing to sell eventually, that maybe it doesn't have to be specifically tailored to this budget, depending on how much flexibility there is with the budget this year.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Any other questions on item 9? All right. So we will move to public expression. And I don't hear any public expression. So Bruno.
I'd like to say something.
Oh, there she is.
I want to echo Peter that when Peter said that things are looking a little more optimistic. I'm thrilled that you're meeting with the Congress people, staff, and Cecilia, and I think I'm hopeful. I haven't been hopeful for a while, but I'm hopeful now.
We're all hopeful. We got to be optimistic about this, and if not, we're going to come back to the drawing board and figure out a way to make this happen.
Terry, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to encourage the project committee to get PG&E on board a year ago. And just to speak from our tribe's experience, for the Red Hills project that we're working on for the bioenergy biochar facility, we're under what's called the fast track with PG&E to get the permit, and it's been over 2 years. We do not have the permit, and we do not have the final bill. So if these funds have to be spent and not only allocated by next March, because there's so many different departments within PG&E that has to do something like what needs to be done, I just encourage you to spend a lot of time getting them on board as soon as possible. Thanks.
I'll reach out to Melinda either today or tomorrow. And another
Excellent.
connection. See if we can get something.
If I could just add a correction, we're not limited. We can't use the funds that were limited to March 31st for PG&E. That's a separate account and a separate plan. But yes, I agree with you that acting quickly to make sure that we're not waiting around for years to come because PG&E wants to take their time is not the good way to do. So that's why that's why I want to pursue to get PG&E back at the table so we can restart those conversations.
Excellent. Thank you for that input. All right, so Bruno, let's go to 2.2. That's what it was. You talked about 3 different options, I think. Is that what it was that we were talking about to move forward, or?
No, 2.2 was just about the committee and the limitations of the committee and just things like that. And the conversation is very much me speaking to a mirror because I elbow my way through things. I push my limits all the time. And sometimes I need to be kind of reminded that it's a group activity and that we need to make sure that we're sharing everyone's time accordingly. So, and I know, and I'm going to speak in general terms because I don't want this, I don't want it to be me speaking to an individual. And so if it ends up being that way, it is what it is. I'm not worried about that, but we need in the Board of Supervisors, if we utilize too much of our staff's hours, we need to get approval from the Board of Supervisors to get that staff time to do the work. And it's basically for the fact that we don't want to deviate from all the other things that we may not understand that staff is already involved in. I think everyone has good intent as to why we always want something from staff, but it makes it difficult because staff is stuck between a rock and a hard place between the things they're told to do and the things that somebody who is maybe their superior or somebody who is like on a committee such as this, that they want to be able to oblige and get them that stuff or do the work that they're being asked to do. But the best way to go about it is to bring it to this committee, hash it out, and make sure that we all approve on what is being asked of our staff versus not being in a meeting and starting to ask for things from staff. It makes it very difficult. So I just wanted to remind everyone that if we are looking for action from staff, the way to do it is to come to this committee. We can have any and all discussions. I think that our intent is to get the results of this project to be where we want it to be. We wanted it to be done last year. We don't want to mess up and have things canceled on us in March. And I think that everyone here is passionate of this project. That's why they wanted to be involved in the first place. But I think sometimes we just kind of need to slow down and recognize that we need the group effort and the group think in order to ask staff to get things done and accomplished, and also receive feedback from staff on what's possible and what's not possible. We have to, I was told one day by City Manager Greg Folsom, I need to learn capacity. I still have trouble in learning capacity because I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning finishing up budget stuff and finishing up my other agenda for Tuesday. There's way too much going on this week, but I can't ask of that from staff. And I need to be mindful of that. And again, it's not bad intent. It's just better if it's done through a group mind and a group conversation versus individualized questions and actions being requested of staff. Again, no hard feelings, no bad emotions or anything like that on what has been going on, but we need to just bring it here. And I think we're all willing to have the tough conversations because we want to have this project be successful. And so in the future, make sure to reach out to staff, get it on the agenda, and let's have those discussions, and that this is where it belongs. And I'll leave it at that unless anyone else wants to speak up. But I just wanted to make sure to make it public because again, I'm speaking to the mayor. Ask Scott. He's thinking about it right now, I'm sure. Pushiest people in the world, and for me to be saying this is very ironic. So I need to listen to myself as well when I say these words. I understand the reasons, and I always need to kind of reset myself and recognize I work with 4 other people on the board, and I need to share and value the time of all staff and bring it to the board to see if that is a direction we all choose to go.
And I appreciate you saying that, Supervisor Sabatier, and I'll attest to it because in other meetings that we have, whether it be a closed session or even on the board, I am of the opposite. So I kind of don't say as much and I tail back a little. And so at times, luckily, Supervisor Sabatier has noticed this and senses those things. Without him, I sometimes wouldn't be heard. And so at times I can speak from this perspective that there may be others that want to bring something forward because things may get very controversial or heated. They'll just not bring it up. And I'll just speak from experience. But because of the help and acknowledgement of Supervisor Sabatier, I've been able to be more assertive and speak about things. But I want to let you know, he does mean it when he says this, because I've noticed he'd say, wait, I think Supervisor Crandall has something, because he's noticed that in me. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that if it makes some sense.
And Supervisor Crandall doesn't get to yield his time to staff to me. It's still only 8 hours.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring it up. I thought this was a decent way to bring it up without getting too much into the weeds of it. And again, I think this committee, we're all committed to getting this project done. If it's a tough conversation we need to have, let's bring it here, because I think we're all willing to have those conversations.
All right. I think, let's see, we have any other question, comments, or concerns on that item, or we can move forward. And I think we are at the next scheduled meeting is July 12th.
May I ask
Go ahead.
Eddie a question? There was reference to something about Middle Creek happening tomorrow at your board meeting. Somehow at the last meeting where we talked about that, a number of supervisors said, we're looking forward to tomorrow. Is there something related to this project on tomorrow's board agenda?
There is nothing tomorrow. I know that Marina mentioned that the letter would be coming to us on June 15th, and maybe we can make sure and have a part B where we can kind of provide feedback about the meeting we're having this afternoon to the board, as well as maybe looking into options, so how the board might want to continue to support us in our endeavors.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, if it had to do with something else, Peter, no, sorry, that's the wrong one. I was looking at the 525 agenda because we were talking about it earlier. Sorry.
Okay,
Almost.
good. I just didn't know.
And I didn't see it on the draft agenda that we have for the following week yet, but that doesn't mean that it won't be there. It'll be there.
I just didn't know if you had to be there in some way tomorrow. So now I can go off and do something else. It sounds like.
Enjoy your Tuesday.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'm pretty sure we're going to enjoy it, right, Bruno? What's that, Marina?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to go, no, you're correct, Peter, there's nothing. So yeah, we were gonna go before on the 8th, but then we moved it to the 15th,
Okay.
following meeting, yeah,
Okay.
so. And if there is a Middle Creek agenda item, we're both out of the loop on that because I had not submitted anything. So no one will be there, but I triple check there's not. And then going off of our next meeting, so again, we're pushing it back a week because it is a holiday weekend. So the offices will be closed on that Monday, July 5th. So yes, our next meeting will be via Zoom on Monday, July 12th.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I would just like to remind folks, please send any information, whether that be the committee or the community members, to the water.resources@lakecountyca.gov to ensure that Cherish can get those agenda items on the board. Feel free to CC me on that as well. But Cherish, I call her my second set of eyes. She does a great job of capturing all the things that need to be placed on the agenda. So please CC that water.resources@lakecountyca.gov for agenda.
And I believe Marina's email is open and available again.
Yeah, no,
I know it wasn't for a while there.
it wasn't for a while, which I was debating. I was like, what's the worst that can happen if I just leave it at max capacity?
And we all send it to Scott.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That's already been done to me once. Please don't do that again.
Scott, I feel for you. I mean, I know Bruno and I get a lot of emails, but I'm pretty sure you. All right. Thank you, everybody. It was a good meeting. I feel productive, and I'll make sure I reach out to my PG&E contact or our PG&E contact and go from there. And I think that we'll be seeing an email. Of course, I know, Marina, if you get it to me too, I can forward whatever you need. So again, thank you, everyone, and Enjoy the rest of the day.
3 o'clock.
Yes.
Thank you,
yes.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.